Good evening and salutations, my Days of Our Lives fans. So this scene of Gabby exposing the truth to Nicole, I feel very perplexed by it because on one hand, I hate when they drag stuff out, okay? And if it wasn't for the actors leaving, they probably would have dragged this out for like maybe about a couple more weeks, tops. So in a lot of ways, I am actually glad that the truth is out and they can begin to move away from this story, right? Because this has been going on since last year. So in a lot of ways, that's a good thing. But then I also sit there and I look at it, and it felt very rushed and somewhat lackluster. So the whole time that Gabby's sitting there telling Nicole um, about what EJ did and the switch and this and that and the third, one, she keeps saying that, this needs to come out, this is the right thing. When has Gabby been known to just be all about the truth and the justice and everything like that? I mean, I know that she's not the villain that she used to be, but this whole it just feels wrong and we have to do the right thing. Since when was that ever really a Gabby model? Number two, the fact that she just went like she threw her husband under the bus. Because Stefan was like, yo, listen, just chill out. And she was just like, no, I'm just gonna do it. Like, like she just had to do it or whatever. And she throws him under the bus, and eventually he's like, all right, fine or whatever. And afterwards, he sits there, he looks at Gabby, he's like, why did you do that? And I'm very curious tomorrow about what she has to sit there and say the reason for that, because it's like, we had this conversation prior to. And one, you're blindsiding him. Two, the hell are you doing? He wanted peace. And you just decided. And for what? I mean, was this really just about revenge? Because it can't just be about. And even if it was about revenge, the fact of the matter is, you literally put your husband in a crossfire. You know how EG is. You know how vindictive he can be. Okay? I would sit there and say anything short of spilling blood, if even then at that point, he would do. So I'm just like, why would you do that for? Now, Nicole, she talks, she's very heartbroken and stuff, but there's no slap. There's no anger. There's no yelling or anything like that. So that's where the lackluster part comes in. And, she just kind of just walks off. Rafe stops him for a minute because he's like, you make out a couple of charges, obstruction and I forgot what the other thing was. I gotta sit there and look at it. I forgot what else it was, but Rafe was like, it could be some charges. So Nicole goes to the house. She packs her stuff. She goes get Jude, and EJ tries to convince her. He's like, "Oh, I love you, this, that, and the third." And I'm like, first of all, EJ, if that's your definition of love, you can keep that. Okay. Um, Nobody needs that version of love. Now, I do sit there and I look at it, and again, this is another scene where it's very lackluster. She's not yelling, she's not slapping him or anything like that. I mean, I look at this scene, and I wasn't watching it, but I saw clips of it. This is when Nicole, I guess, lost a child or whatever. They were going to get married, and Sammy stopped the wedding or whatever, and she's sitting there pleading and crying and this and that and the third. And part of me is just like, I know what he did is bad, right? And I'm not trying to give him a pass or anything, but it wasn't that long ago that you were walking down the aisle and the truth came out and you practically did the same thing. You loved him, this, that, and the third. And now the roles are reversed. And now you're like, oh, well, you lost me. And I'm kind of just like, see, when you want forgiveness, it was all good. The minute that he asked for that same thing, you're ready to sit there and skip town. And I also sit there and look at this, and I'm like, let's be honest. You want to be with Eric from get go. So in a lot of ways, it's just convenient for you. You used to have to look at it. It was like it's just very convenient for you at this point. So it's like, oh well, you know what? You lied to me, and it's Eric Child. So yeah, bye. Like it just seemed like it's just one of those things where it's like, oh, you got what you want now, so I guess you can go. Um, so Connie is the one that killed Li Shen, and this is another one of those things where it's like it's giving me flashbacks of Whitney. Whitney suffered a tragedy or whatever, and she latched on to Abe like there was no tomorrow, right? Just super desperate, trying to be nice, but it's like super desperate, didn't really get any help, and kind of lives a very sad and pathetic life. And then you look at Connie. Now, granted, she hasn't. We don't really know much about her. We don't know if she actually has like this very tragic backstory where it's like she lost someone or whatever, or this, that, and the third. But it just comes across as, oh, I had to sit there and latch onto a man to make myself feel complete. And it's just like, really? So the whole time she's sitting there talking to this hallucination of Shen, and she's all like, oh, well, Gabby drove me to do it, and, Melinda drove me to do it, and it's not my fault, and this, that, and the third. And I'm just like, oh, Lord, okay. This is just like Whitney all over again. And I'm just like, really? So this is your killer now? Ugh. It just feels so lackluster. It feels so lackluster, and it's like, great, another pathetic woman that had to sit there and pine over a man to the point where she was willing to sit there and hurt and kill other people. Like I'm watching a Lifetime movie at this point. Um, Eric says his goodbyes. He says it to Holly over the phone. He says it to Roman. He gets to the airport and Nicole calls him and he just, hangs up. And Nicole, of course, she catches up to him and, that's pretty much where the cliffhanger is. But yeah, they ride off into the sunset, And to be honest, I cannot be more happier. I really cannot be. I find those two to be so obnoxious, so selfish, so self centered, in the sense of, yeah, they'll be with other people, but they'll still have that attraction to each other. And, if the move is right and the move fancies them, they have no problem disregarding, disrespecting, and hurting whoever they're with at the time to be with each other. So I'm kind of just like, good. Just wipe my hands of both you people. Go, stay gone. I'm good. Um. Oh, okay. So Bobby at this point is doing a little bit more stringing her along, Jada along. Um. And long story short, he didn't witness the crime, but he witnessed the aftermath. So like, it shows him looking at Connie, crying. Looks like she had blood on her shirt, and they're saying, I didn't mean to do it, I didn't mean to do it over and over and over again. Um, but that's what she sits there and says. That's what he says. He's like, when he got to Salem, he took over and he was going to write a story. I don't know if I can remember what wound up happening. I think Everett was going to write a story. This is the part where I get it so mixed up. I think Everett was going to write a story, but he couldn't remember what it was. And that's when Bobby took over. Apparently, he could just like that. Which I guess kind of makes sense because we don't sit there and see Everett. Even when he came to town, we didn't sit there and see him all the time. So it could have been times where he could have just flipped and turned into Bobby um, a long time ago before we even knew about the whole DID thing. I feel like that's about it. Let me just double check. So anyway, he won't sit there and say um, who he did it. I mean, who did it. I don't know if it's because he doesn't know the name of the person or not. But Jada was like, well, if I showed you some pictures, line up or whatever, would you be able to help? No, I don't know. Maybe. I guess you have to sit there and come back tomorrow. So Jada leaves, tells Rafe about what she knows about what Bobby was Smith is saying. So now he seems a little more interested. In the beginning, once again, Rafe had that tone of, oh, so how was your trip with your ex boyfriend? How was your trip with your ex? And I'm just like, part of it's like, okay, Rafe, we get it. You don't feel comfortable with her talking to her ex. But I feel like it's going to get to a point where it's going to start to annoy Jada, where Jada's going to sit there and be like, okay, well, I don't need a sarcasm. I don't. I get it from Ray's point of view. Don't get me wrong, but it's one of those things where it's like, well, you don't trust her now. I mean, she's visiting him in a mental institution. It's not exactly a lot of competition for you right now. Just throwing that out there. Anyway, I feel like that's pretty much about it. I can't think of anything else, but if I miss anything, you know what to do. Come to the live stream tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We'll talk about all the shows, General Hospital, Days of Our Lives, Bold and Beautiful, Young and Restless. With that being said, I'm going to go. I'll see you in the next video.